I am in the 13th district of Vienna, Austria. The area surrounding Schönbrunn Palace, known as Heitzing, has some interesting off-the-beaten-path sites that are worth a look, such as this plaque honoring Joseph Stalin. That's right, a plaque featuring the profile of one of the worst men in history is just here in a residential district, though it is here for a reason, as Joseph Stalin actually lived in this building in January of 1913. Stalin came to Vienna to meet with his good comrade Leon Trotsky, who lived in Vienna as a journalist at the time. Of course, they did not remain comrades forever. I will mention that Adolf Hitler also would have been living here in Vienna at the same time. Stalin also wrote Marxism and the National Question while living in this building. The ethnic Georgian tackled nationalism in a Marxist worldview, in which he favors uniting for a higher culture. This plaque was placed here by the Austrian Communist Party in 1949, while Stalin was still General Secretary of the Communist Party. This is actually one of the last surviving Stalin monuments in Europe. However, there is now a contextualization plaque below it. It states that the plaque should be viewed today as a reminder and memorial, not only to the millions of murdered and suffering Soviet citizens under Stalin's dictatorship, but also to the hundreds of Austrians who were arrested and murdered by the Soviet regime after fleeing Austrian political persecution in 1933 and the Nazi terror in 1938. That's really interesting to see, a Stalin monument still out in the wild. Now, Vienna was still jointly occupied by the Allies in 1949, so after the Stalin plaque was erected, the Americans and British wanted to counter the communists with a historical plaque connecting some Western hero to Vienna. The British came to be in control of the district called Heitzing, with their headquarters in Schönbrunn Palace itself. They found the perfect opportunity not too far away at the Park Hotel Schönbrunn. It turns out that the great American inventor, and I should mention very successful capitalistic opportunist, Thomas Edison stayed at this fancy hotel right by a prominent entrance to the Schönbrunn Gardens. In 1911, Thomas Edison was invited to Vienna by Emperor Franz Joseph to stay at this hotel while he worked on the electrification of Schönbrunn Palace. 1911 does seem late for such a prominent location to be electrified. The Emperor was not a big fan of modern technology, so Schönbrunn and the Hofburg were still exclusively using oil lamps well into the 20th century, until he finally gave in to electricity and got Thomas Edison himself to supervise the upgrades. These dueling Cold War plaques exemplifying a historiographical proxy war here in Vienna are really interesting. Not far from the Park Hotel Schönbrunn is the statue of the Archduke Maximilian I, the short-lived Habsburg Emperor of Mexico. Many Mexican conservatives wanted a European monarch to come rule Mexico, which was in a politically tumultuous state during the mid-19th century, so Maximilian became emperor with the brokering of Napoleon III in 1864. However, his reign did not go well at all. The United States did not recognize him, and the French army propping him up soon began to withdraw, so Maximilian was captured by revolutionaries and executed by firing squad in 1867. This statue near his birthplace of Schönbrunn was unveiled in 1871. This is one of the last, if not the last, surviving gas lamps still running in Vienna. You can see a little flame in there. There's also a maypole at Heitzing, traditionally used in this part of Europe for folk festivals. This placard commemorates Wegel's Dreher Park, an amusement establishment that was at this site right by Schönbrunn between 1886 and 1894. It had a show hall where they do circuses and wrestling. That is one of the few surviving wartime air raid sirens in Vienna. They used to be all over the place. This is the Springer Schlössl, a beautiful historic mansion not too far away from Schönbrunn Palace. It was designed by Fellner and Helmer, local architects who designed many theaters across Central Europe, including the Volksoper here in Vienna where I saw an opera. The castle-like mansion was completed in 1887 for Baron Springer. However, the owners were Jewish, So it was confiscated by the Nazis and used as a training ground. Then during the war, the lawn was hit by 22 bombs. But thankfully the Schlössl survived. After the war, it was used as a student residence. Then it was repatriated in 1953. Nowadays, the Verein der Wiener Volksheim, the People's Party of Austria, one of the most significant political parties in the nation, uses this house for meetings and events. I was lucky enough to get to go inside and see the magnificent atrium. There is a colossal staircase. It is definitely reminiscent of a theater. Fellner and Helmer were primarily theater architects, and I think that really shows in this room. The walnut woodwork and paneling of this unique house is absolutely incredible. That large glass roof is also amazing. Man, this is fantastic. Next to the Schlössl is a half-timbered stable. I have now traversed the sprawling Schönbrunn property and arrived at the historic Heitzing Cemetery. I have come to see the grave of Gustav Klimt, Vienna's most famous artist. It is a rather simple grave in the back of the cemetery. It's just a small square slab with his name written in his unique style. The grave is topped by hanging birch trees, which is interesting. Gustav Klimt passed away on February 6, 1918 from pneumonia and was buried next to his mother. Klimt did live in this general vicinity at a villa house. It is now a museum, but I did not have time to see it. Gustav Klimt was definitely a unique personality, and I saw many of his masterpieces and a whole exhibit based on his inspirations while here in Vienna. I have videos on those as well as other Vienna attractions and museums. I also cover all sorts of interesting and offbeat places across Europe and the United States. Please like this video, share it, and subscribe to my channel for more. Thanks for watching!